Everything you do should be for the love of the game. You don't have to be an elite performer or an elite athlete to understand what it means to do something for the love of the game. Being able to take people that have got an incredible drive and have proven themselves in one area of life and taking them and giving them a skill set and giving them the training in order to map those capabilities and that method, that ability to dive in and attack something with this fervor it's to the next level. Imagine you could take those same people and give them the tools to do another thing at that same level with that same fervor, that same love of the game. That's what the team at Shift Group are doing, because I've actually had JR from the Shift Group on before, so we've got really, really cool stuff coming because we had JR and Anthony. The team's growing, the company's growing, the customer base is growing, and the economy's heading for a cliff. Or is it? I don't know. Let's find out. Team, roll the stinger. What's happening, crew? Welcome to the DiscoPosse podcast. We are now back in high production mode because we've got something amazing going on. This is a rare opportunity to meet with two incredible people. You're going to meet with JR and Anthony from Shift Group. We're going to talk about the Shift Group process or process, depending on which side of the 49th parallel you're on. And we're going to talk about what they do, how they do it, proven results. If you've got a startup, you need to figure out how to grow your company, especially as we head into what could be a really difficult downturn. We're already seeing the problems that are happening. We're seeing people begin to react. The companies that come out of this downturn are going to be the most incredibly driven, profitable, culture-centric teams that are going to ride this storm out. They're going to paddle into the wave and they're going to come out on the other side. And if you need help to do that, if you need to know why this is so important, you go to the Shift Group. Make sure you go head on over, check out the link that's on screen right now. Right, go to gtmdelta.com/live. If we've got a really cool event that's going on in Las Vegas, or hit me up over on Twitter, check out hashtag LVReinvent22, and you'll see all about that that's going on. Shift Group is part of the supporting community sponsors for it, so I'm super proud to be able to host JR and Anthony and his team there. All right, so go check it out. I hope you love the show just like I did. Just literally got off, as you can tell. I'm wearing the same shirt that you're going to see in the video. Let's roll. This is JR and Anthony from the Shift Group. And so it begins. Back again. This is fun because I have a rare treat now to be able to bring on two fantastic humans who I couldn't be happier to be in front of. And I would love to be beside at any event, at any board meeting, at any sales meeting, and at any restaurant, just to share some liquids and some food, because you guys are fantastic, and I want to keep telling the story. So welcome. The DiscoPosse podcast is back, and we got a lot of stuff going on. Of course, we have an event that's coming up. So to the folks that are watching this before AWS reInvent and the now soon to be infamous LV reInvent 22, the GTM Delta team. So my team at GTM Delta and our partnering with Myra Media, we're doing an in-person event in Las Vegas. That's happening November 28th to December 1st. It's going to be super fun. We're doing lots of live streaming, and we are supported by fantastic teams who are people-focused, community-focused, outcome-focused. And JR and Anthony, you are among both an amazing set of humans, but also a fantastic organization. So, all right, enough about me talking about us. Let's you talk about you. JR, Anthony, if you guys want to go give a quick little introduction for folks that are new to you, and let's talk about what Shift Group's up to, because I know a lot's changed since we talked last time.
Yeah, I can start. So Eric, we talked when I first kind of launched the business about a little less than a year ago. The business model's simple. We work with former elite athletes, college, professional, Olympic athletes that are transitioning out of their sport. We train them on the foundational skills to sell disruptive software to companies and large organizations. And then we partner with technology companies that are looking to hire great entry-level sales talent. So the model's still the same. The way we're delivering it and bringing it to market is rapidly changing and improving. And part of that change is growth, which is good. And that's kind of why Anthony is now part of the team. And I'll let Anthony introduce himself and his role.
Awesome. Thank you, JR. Eric, thank you for having us on here. We were excited. JR's talked about this for a little while. We're both definitely excited to be in Vegas with everybody as well. Yeah, my name's Anthony Flaherty, Director of Sales. Came on a little over a month ago to start really driving our list of hiring partners. We have some awesome companies right now, like JR mentioned, in the disruptive software space, software development, cybersecurity, financial technology, health technology. And the goal is really to just do more with the hiring partners that we have. We have an unbelievable list of candidates right now that have gone through our training, like JR mentioned, on the foundational and functional skills, and they're ready to be introduced to a lot of these companies and start the interview process. So my goal is to come on and work with my team to start building that list of hiring partners, have conversations, understand companies' hiring needs, and see if we can help them grow. My background, I graduated in 2017 from Norwich University. I was fortunate to play some semi-professional hockey afterwards for a couple of years. I traveled the Southeast and Midwest getting beat up by guys that were a little bit bigger than me. And then after that, I like a lot of our candidates today, I came up against that question of what's next for me. That athletic DNA, that bone in my body is still there. And I wanted an opportunity to continue to utilize a lot of the intangibles that made me successful throughout my life in both school and athletics. And I was connected with JR in my network, and he really got me introduced to software sales. I started through an introduction from somebody in my network. I started at a company called Logs.io in
I know him well. We probably, the irony is, I think that's how we actually have already met prior to this, because I'm trying to remember when it would have been. I'm pretty sure that we bumped into each other either at a booth or somewhere. So inevitably, I already knew your presence and name. So I was like, well, now I get to figure out, where did we meet before?
Okay. So that makes sense. Yeah, I've gone to reInvent before. Actually, with Logs.io, I understand how beneficial of a conference it is from a software perspective, and also for us, the types of customer profiles that will be in attendance, essentially selling the software that they have. Those are the conversations that we're going to be having. And there's no better place to get an idea that you need bodies on your sales development team than reInvent, when you can't keep up with the traffic at the booth, or you're having a ton of on the fly discovery or qualification style conversations. It's a good indicator of if you need to grow your sales development team, and you also get an idea of how many inbound leads your team's going to have to follow up with when the conference wraps up. So I've done that with Logs.io. After I left Logs.io, I was there for close to 3 years. I went to another Israeli cybersecurity company called Signet. I was there for a little over a year, running our West Coast, helping build our West Coast go-to-market team. We were in the XDR space, so think antivirus and malware protection, et cetera. So I was there for a little over a year. Up until this summer, I was having more conversations with JR about really the intimate side of the business. He was telling me a lot of what he was growing here. It was so exciting. And not only was I extremely excited about hearing about the Shift Group business and what he was growing, I've lived this. I lived the transition, leaving college, leaving professional hockey, and trying to figure out what I was doing next. So seeing the platform and the foundation that we're able to lay in front of some of these, high performing athletes today is, it's really what, caused me to make the decision to come over there. JR being a close friend of mine, I knew the success that he's had in the past, and I knew he wasn't going to lose moving forward in whatever he, put his mind to. So, having an opportunity to help him, build Shift Group has been amazing thus far. And it's just, it's early stages. We're just getting started.
Well, that's the amazing thing. And what I'm a student of JR and methods. I have been for a long time. Since the first time we chatted, he was somebody that gave lessons without needing to be asked. And it was such a warm thing. There's a very few people that I've met in an organization that have such incredible skill. And the first thing they want to do is give it away, and seeing the value of doing that, because like what you can save that person and that business that they work for so much by just imparting these lessons. And then, hey, business will come. Let's just be good flipping humans first. And then in the end, when that opportunity comes up, there's deep behavior psychology behind it. Well, it's reciprocation. There's a lot of things that are baked into the psyche about it, but he did, JR never did that as the reason. It wasn't like, I'm going to tell you a story because I want you to come back to me in a week and give me something back. It was like, no, like, this is something I think would be really cool. And that was it. Some people are good at giving unsolicited advice. Some people just like to give unsolicited opinions. And that was not the case. Right. And Anthony, you already showed how you've been able to do that. And that's why I love when you see these people that come together. And this is what we can give to people, like as advisors, as friends, as everything. Like, just take these practices, these methods. And if you it's like, oh, goodness gracious. I'm the worst sports reference person ever, because I can never remember unless it's a cyclist. I can name every Tour de France cyclist for the past 14 years. But I always forget which of the startup coaches is, but it's the famous book says the score will take care of itself. And that is the idea of, like, you don't coach from the sidelines. You coach from the practice field. You coach from the locker room. The score takes care of itself. You put the methods in place. You give the people the tools they need. You give them the combos. You give them the kata. You give them the how to glue it together, and then you push them out on the field, because they can't hear you screaming from the sidelines. I literally was a coach for my older kids. Like, I've coached soccer, coached hockey, and I know that while that moment is happening, you can yell all you want, and they're not in it. It's so, like, what you guys are doing is fantastic. And I mean, I can't talk it up enough because of how fantastic I know the method is more important than coming in. You could stand beside that person. You could get on the phone. You could cold call. You could pick a warm lead. You could pick something that's middle of funnel. You could pick an existing customer. You could get them to renew. You've done nothing for them on the long term. You've achieved a short-term goal. It's not even a goal. You've checked a checkbox. You've done it. You've completed a task. That's not a goal. That's not an outcome. So, all right, that's me proselytizing on methods over products. JR, let's how far off am I? Right? Is this, and what are you seeing as you scaled? You're seeing success in both sides of it too. We'll talk a bit about the two-sided marketplace, which is one of my favorite things ever. But yeah, why does the method matter?
Because I think, like, and sales especially, right? Like, anybody you talk to about sales will tell you it's part art and part science. But really, what, like, I've kind of, over the past year, I've really thought deeply about this, Eric. And like, when I think about, like, what it takes to be a successful salesperson, I kind of break it down into like 3 buckets. I think the first thing is a passion for excellence. And when I say that, I think if in anything, right, it could be engineering and coding and programming. But in sales, especially, there's 3 things that you want to really understand to become excellent at. It's skills, it's habits, and it's process. Right. And I think, one thing that we found is athletes understand that, right? Because sports is the same way, right? In order to be a good hockey player, you need to skate fast, shoot hard, be able to have good conditioning, right? Those are skills, right? But then there's also habits. You need to, you need to take care of your body, go to bed early. You need to prepare on game day. You need to eat right, like all those things. And then there's process, right? Like there's certain position you need to be on the ice at the right time. There's a certain place you need to be depending on the game situation, whether it's late in the game, early in the game, whatever. And sales is the same way, right? Like if you look at sales, there's certain skills that you're going to need. You need to know how to ask questions. You need to know how to do elite research. You need to know how to build rapport with people. You need to know how to get people talking and like really qualify the biggest business problems and the biggest priorities. You need to know how to define, key performance indicators of an organization that are negatively impacted by however a customer is approaching a problem. And then there's process you need. You need to be able to follow up after meetings. You need to be able to set an agenda at the beginning of the meeting. You need to, ensure that certain things are happening before you do a demo or after you do a demo or when you're going to do an evaluation, right? So that's the first thing that I think we've really gotten kind of dialed in on those things, the skills, the habit, and the process that is important in sales. And then the second piece is practicing those things with intention, right? I think you said it better than I could have, Eric, about like, you don't coach from the sideline. The way that people get better at anything is by repetition. And it's not like just going through the motions. It's perfect practice makes perfect. So that's the other thing that we've really kind of focused on is like, how do we enforce practicing with intention to our candidates against the skills, process, and habits that we're trying to teach them? And then the third piece is using the skills, habits, and process, the practice and practicing those things with intention, specifically to pursue goals, right? To sign up a certain amount of customers in a certain amount of time, or, execute against the weekly metric goal, or execute against the quarterly revenue target, whatever it is. So I think, and what I'm seeing, Eric, and I learned how to sell really in like 2006 to 2009, which was not a great time.
I was gonna say, that's like trying to be a real estate agent in 99 to 2001. Like, guess what, kid? This is gonna suck. But you're gonna learn hard lessons.
Exactly. But in those and listen, in these types of economies, like the details matter, right? Like the execution matters, and you have to almost be perfect if you want to execute. And that means that we have to get really good at training. So that's like what we're seeing on the candidate side is like, all right, we're getting better at like really making sure these kids are prepared, which is a good thing for them. To your point about the two-sided market, that side of the market's pretty easy for us because it's free to our candidates. On the company side, like sales hires are really important now. You have to get somebody that can ramp quickly, be productive, and won't quit. Right? So how do you do that? You get people that are really well prepared, really understand what the job is, and know exactly what they're going to do to get better, and have a goal to get further along in their career. Especially for entry-level salespeople, that's the hardest job. So that's kind of how, like, I know that sounds simple, but those three things are like a huge mantra for the company. And like thinking about when we partner with companies, making sure that those companies are thinking about it the same way, right? The worst thing you want to do is put a kid in a company who's never going to get any support and be able to practice with intention. So I think it's important. You have a lot of founders and technical leaders that listen to DiscoPosse. When they think about building sales organizations, they have to remember it's not about the outcome. You sell the process and the fact that you're going to make these people better than they were when they first joined your company. And if you do that, you're going to get really special people, because players care about the process. They care about the playbook. Yeah, if we can win some championships, that's amazing. But it's about the process. And that's kind of what we're preaching it as anywhere we can.
Well, and it's amazing if you think of like there's plenty of live references we could pull from. There were plenty of plenty of guys and gals that kept a jersey despite a better offer because they were committed to like, I'm here with this organization. I'm here to achieve an outcome, and I'm going to stay through the hard times. And we're going to rebuild the roster. We're going to rebuild the plan. We're going to execute. We're going to do that thing, plan the thing, practice the thing, do the thing. And it's amazing to see that there are a lot of people that naturally flow. Like I even joke that I call it like trading season because it always happens. The market starts to slow down. We hit certain parts of the year, and all of a sudden it's like trade deadlines. LinkedIn just starts lighting up with like, I'm going over to here, especially out of the sales side, because quite often, I mean, I got this from financial services background, was a lot of the folks would come over right after tax time because it's a big lull for them. And then they can go over to a new organization. They may or may not bring their book with them, but ultimately they get the advantage of coming over with trailing 12-month revenue for that first year salary. So they basically have kind of like a free 12 months to land and figure it out. And then, they either do or don't execute. And then it's either a 1-year gig or a 5-year gig. And very seldom is it anywhere longer or shorter. It's like and the investment in people, and this from your own anecdotal, information and experience, as well as there's tons of research that you're giving a year to somebody. And if you give them less, you're wasting both your time, because you cannot possibly evaluate human engagement within a team and within your customer facing ecosystem sub 1 year. But doing it longer than a year when it's not working is also counterproductive for everybody, because so there's this weird, there's machine learning wrapped around this stuff. It's optimal stopping. It's the secretary problem. There's lots of actual algorithmic examples of where it is. And that's why, you look at optimal stopping has a magic number, and it's bizarre. But when you look back on how many times you've looked for a car, looked for, a person to hire, and like, oh, dang, there's science inside all this. But if you can bring the human experience to it, which is always the funny thing. And sorry, I'm talking too much on this one, just because I'm excited about this idea. People need to understand that machines won't replace people. People won't replace machines, but you have to find where the two mix together, use the advantages of one, map it to the advantages of the other, and then find people that you can build a goddamn company with a culture that you care about, that you would give to your customer, because you're effectively giving your customer the experience of who you hire. And then yet we look, there's all these companies out there. I'm in the writing space. You know how many AI writers come out every day on AppSumo for some $39 lifetime deal? Of course. And then what do you get? You get the same crap. I'm like, if you're using AI to write, I hope you're getting AI to read it. It doesn't work. And when we look at things and we say like, hey, it's funny, that, isn't it amazing that bees, when they make their hive, they're perfect hexagons. And you're like, look at that. It's like bees know math. And you're like, I'm not sure if you checked this out, but it's actually the math represents nature, not the other way around. It's like so all of these algorithms, and even if you read all about optimal stopping, in the end, I need shift group to find the person that's going to fit my optimal stopping problem. That's no AI is going to just get poured over a resume and find the right person.
No, 100%. You can't, there is and as you know, right, sales has a huge human element, which makes it even harder to think about machines replacing that process.
Well, and it's interesting too, Anthony, you've really covered a lot of the game for somebody as young as you are, in that your early experiences, you kind of immediately went into every area. You were doing live booth delivery. You were evaluating how it fits into the funnel. You're evaluating how it fits into the rest of the sales org. You were learning about that stuff. And that is like, that's the difference. There's somebody you can take to a booth and they're gonna be like, okay, what do I do? Okay, great. And then 2 days later, they're like, all right, what do I do next? Versus if I bring you to a show, you're going to say, what do I do? And I'm going to give you an idea. And then the next morning you're going to be, you know what we should do together? And that's the difference. That's why you are here versus a lot of folks who, God bless them, they're doing the job, but you saw past it and you saw optimization inside it. So this must be kind of super exciting for you that, there's obviously risks in us making these ventures, especially when the market is going, yeah, but it's also opportunity. So anyways, love to hear what excites you about this opportunity with what you can do.
For being at Shift Group.
Yeah.
I think I alluded to it a little while ago, but any time in life that you can mix an opportunity to work with, personal experiences that you've had in the past, and now they're sort of morphing together in my life, it became a little bit of a no-brainer for me. So if we were to, Eric, if you were to be interviewing me, I'd say 4 or 5 years ago, when I just finished up playing, I was in Fayetteville, North Carolina. I came back, spent a summer in Boston, and then I signed with the team that fall. And, I had to make that tough decision of, am I delaying the inevitable of eventually getting a job? I had some interviews in the process, and, you probably would have said to yourself, this gentleman has a lot of intangibles that we're looking for. And, what we want to hire for a business development representative. I was energetic. I probably showed a lot of resiliency. You could tell that I was going to be competitive. I had a good head on my shoulders at the time, but you probably would have turned to somebody after the interview and said, that kid's pretty raw. A lot of the stuff that, he has a lot of the stuff that we want, but we're not sure that we're going to be able to mold it, exactly to how we want it, or we're not sure what the next 6 months is going to look like for this person, just because, in that process, there's a lot of risk and there's a lot of question marks. So I saw that firsthand with myself, and I got passed on by some companies. I was fortunate, to end up at Logs.io, what you said, which was an amazing technology. I got to see, a side of, I got to learn a different language, I guess you could say. It was a side of technology that I never could have imagined learning. I was a part of a leadership team at Logs.io that came on that was incredible. I got to learn some amazing stuff. But what drew me to Shift Group is not only the opportunity we talk about today, look at the product, like the finances and entry-level sales, or sales in general. Like, if you work hard enough and you have the habit type of stuff that we talked about every day, and you're bringing it, the finances, I don't want to, there's a lot of things that play into this, but the finances will figure out itself. You want to be a part of a company that has a good product and a great leadership team that you could learn from, especially early on in your career. And I'm at a point now where I was willing to take the next step into management and into a leadership role that I knew I was ready for. And what better opportunity than being able to do that, but also work underneath somebody like JR, who's obviously been a proven leader in the past. He's he's ran teams of 100, 200 people. He's had a ton of success. He's been a chief revenue officer. I knew that this was something on my roadmap that I always wanted to do, working with somebody like him. And it made the decision very easy from a leadership perspective. Now seeing, and JR, I'm sure, is going to talk about it, what's on the horizon for us over the next couple months, and how we're going to change sort of that entry level sales hiring landscape, and what we're going to be able to provide to our hiring partners from a visibility standpoint. And before they ever even meet with somebody in an interview process, the opportunity that they're going to get to see a profile and see videos on a candidate. So that's, like, from a product standpoint, I was very excited there. From a leadership standpoint, JR checked all the boxes for me. But from a personal, like, do I have the opportunity to get out of bed every morning and believe in what I'm doing? And talk about checking a box there. I lived this. I lived the fear. I lived through the fear. I lived through the anxiety of, what am I doing wrong? What's the foundation that I need to take that next step to land the job that I really want, to end up at a Series A, B, C company that has a ton of upside with great leadership. where I can get equity, that I could scale with the business. What was I missing? And it was a couple key things that we're wrapping a business around, and we're giving candidates a foundation to be able to do that and not worry about if they're prepared enough for the interview process. It's why I came. It's exactly, it checked all the boxes for me, and being able to help, candidates and kids that are in the same, guys, girls that have been in the same position as me, in the same shoes. It's like, what else could I want right now?
What I often, we find sport analogies line up so well, just because everybody's got a pretty relative familiarity, in, if not a great adoration for a particular sport or athletes. And it makes sense because we see motivation, execution, outcome. Like, we see the stuff, whether we think of it in those words necessarily, but people be like, yeah, this person's great, and like, what makes them great? And if you like back it down with the 5 whys, you get to the actual thing of like, well, they're from the town that I'm from. So it's kind of badass that I see they're playing for the NHL or whatever, right? Like, you see these things, and then we see those in each other, and it inspires us to be like, hey, I can do that thing, or I can take the skill that I've got. But in the end, the thing that will always boil down to it is, when it isn't going well, are you doing it? Can you do this for the love of the game? And it's my favorite thing to say. We're going to this event, and I'm telling people that are coming with me that we're going to be running this. And I said, you're going to come to this event, and I'm going to pay you to be there. And you're going to be in Las Vegas for a week. It's going to be fantastic. And it's going to be the hardest week you've worked in the last 5 years. I said, and it's going to be tiring, and it's going to be testing you in ways you didn't realize, but we're going to make it fun. And you're going to come out of this, and we're doing this because we love what we're doing. And it's always for the love. Like, I know this is going to suck. Like, at every possible angle, it's going to be the greatest thing ever. And look, when it comes down to it, those are the people that attract me to them automatically. Is, the book that I hand out in my welcome package for my team, which is cool. So JR, I can probably say this, right? This is the stuff that we learned together, and that you've always imparted on me, right? Like, welcome people on board, make them know culture is how they behave when you're not looking, but ultimately you can instill that culture early and make it repetitive, make it consistent and continuous. So what do? They come on board, we give them their onboarding, we do the financials, the legals, we do what you got to do. And you get their address, and the first thing they get in the mail is a copy of Legacy by James Kerr, to learn about, how do the New Zealand All Blacks do what they do? And what does it mean to sweep the sheds, as they say, when the greatest scorers on the team are celebrated by the press and by everybody, and then the first thing they do is they stay back and they sweep the sheds while they send the rest of the players off to dinner. And someone asks them, they're like, why would you do that? Like, you're the stars. They said, no, we just happen to be the ones that put the ball over. But we did this as a team. And what better celebration of it than us to give back to the team that did everything they could. They sacrificed every ounce of themselves on that field so that we could do what we do well. And then we can give back in this way. And it's like that culture, that behavioral dynamic. If you lay it down early, then when the hard times come, and they will come, then it's there. And it's like JR, if you said I was in sales because I got into sales in 1996 and got out in 99, I'd have said you weren't actually in sales. You were just standing beside deals that were happening.
Yeah, exactly.
But when you sell through downturns and you survive through downturns, there's a persistence, and that pays off. And this is why, just the fact that you can do exactly what we would do for an employee, but you're creating everyone's future employee with how you're putting your culture in those people, and they've got stuff that's baked in. Like, athletes it's baked in. It's burning inside them. It's such a fantastic pairing, and it's like you start to think yourself, like, why hasn't this been done before? Like, because it's hard. It's hard, but the method is there, dude. I for both you can see, just how much you give to this. But so let's talk about sort of the process Sorry, my Canadianisms come out there.
We're used to it. We're hockey players. We're used
That's
to
right.
process.
You know enough Canadian. Let's talk about the process and where things are at. Where a lot's changed. You've learned a lot. What are some of the hard lessons and the good lessons that have come out of the past few months?
Yeah, so I would say hardest lesson was we relied really heavily on what you just talked about, was like the DNA of our people. I'd say the first 6 months of the year, the first 6 months of the business, we got by on that, right? Like we did a good job preparing them for the interview. We did a good job getting them excited about the opportunity to sell business to business technology solutions. But ultimately the reason they were successful because that's who they are in their bones. June, July come around, market cranks a little bit, and it's like, okay, we need to get them more prepared, not just for the interview, not just for the opportunity, but for what their job is going to be. So we instituted like hard skill training, right? Like account research, cold emails, cold calls, discovery and qualification, and operational excellence. And it was like, all right, now our candidates are better. What we realized was now they're more excited about the opportunity, and now they're more prepared for the interview. Great. And they're doing a little better when they started. But then it was like, okay, we need to incentivize repetition and practice, and we need to incentivize competition during that process. So what we created, Eric, was a test. So now we teach them the skills, then we test them on the skills. Nice. And we don't test them. We brought in outside salespeople. So we do this thing called an assistant coaches program. We had 250 people sign up for it with 5 years of sales experience. And the final test is administered by those people. So there's no favoritism because they're a shift group athlete and we're going to give them a good score. We donate $100 to the salesperson's favorite charity for the test they administer. And then they give them scores across those 6 categories. And then we have a public leaderboard that our candidates can see. And pretty soon our companies are going to be able to see the leaderboard. And then they can actually go in, like Anthony said, and watch the game tape of the candidate doing a mock cold call, doing a mock discovery call, presenting their 30, 60, 90. And they can see all of that without ever interviewing the candidate, without ever paying $1. So you can have VPs of sales that are building out BDR teams, watch 50 videos of potential candidates and decide who they want to interview. So the whole goal is like, 1, incentivize practice and competition to the athlete, and 2, give radical transparency to the hiring teams that are trying to build great sales teams. And I think this like new platform that we built called Shift Connect is going to change the way people hire entry-level sales talent forever. And we're going to just take advantage of it and try to get it out into the market as much as we can. That's one of the reasons we're coming to Vegas, is to meet sales leaders and tell them like, hey, you can hire from any recruiter, you can go to a job fair, but what you get with us is you get guaranteed transparency of what you're getting. And you get a kid with a really, really good foundation on what it means to be a technology sales professional. And it is a profession, right? A lot of people sell software. There's not a lot of people that are software sellers. And there is a big difference. And what we're producing is a generation of professional technology salespeople. And that's like the most exciting thing that we're working on, I think.
What we need to come out with is a just enough sales skills, little mini market for marketers and for engineers. Like that's the one thing that and what you just said is pretty important. There are a lot of people selling software, but there are not as many software sellers. And I am not I've sold a bunch of software, whether directly or indirectly, but I'm not a software seller, right? It's not, I may have acquired the skills, but it's because I'm kind of an idiot and I need to figure stuff out to the deepest possible level so I can optimize every piece of my experience just to see how it works. And then like once that happens, I'm passionate about it. I always am. And I'm passionate about the process and how it works. But in the end, I don't ever want the dependency of carrying a bag as they say, being a quota carrying rep. That being said, so what kind of an idiot am I that I co-found a company where I'm 100% responsible for sales and everything, but I still don't feel like I'm in sales.
Yes. Yeah. I know what you mean. 100%.
But one thing just everybody needs to learn these techniques, right? There's a reason why I would listen to the things that when you would come in with a book and put it on your desk, I would go and I would Amazon Kindle that book that day. Whatever it was, I would just like, JR's reading this. I'm going to download that book. And that taught me of like, how do elite performers behave? I don't need to learn about the science of it. I just need to watch how you approach it, and the science will come. I'll learn, which is kind of cool. And same thing, like Anthony, you look at from the performance side as a human performance, right? We have one of the worst things that people do is they look at sport, elite sport, players, whatever they are, or even moderate players. And there's people that will shine. They got medals, they got trophies, they get a pro gig. And you want to tell me, how many people are running this league that you're never going to know the name of? Do you know how many farm leagues have the most incredible players that should have been caught and brought up, but maybe they didn't? Then some that got pushed up that maybe shouldn't. Alexander Daig, just saying. But there's enough guys and girls that we'll never know the names of, but they've got the skill and they're going to take that and apply it to something. So I'll call it the A- players, which I think is the best thing ever. I don't want the trophy seekers. I want somebody who wants the team to have a trophy. Right? So Anthony, in your own personal journey, right? How did you know that you wanted it, but then facing that moment where you're like, okay, I got a life cycle that my body can take. I've got a skill level that's relative to my peers. I have to make a decision. And how did you feel when you knew that there was a life cycle to your professional career? And what was that personal journey like as you had to think about, where's the end game for me?
Yeah. I think it's something that you always know is there. For some people, their body tells them a little bit earlier. Your performance, it depends on the type of player you are. Your performance sometimes catches up to you or what you were doing. I think I was at a level, although there was a lot of elite players around me, and it took the skill level was very high. You understand that there's life after the sport that you're in. So, that decision, although, I was excited for the next, talking about the next part of my journey. I was extremely excited, especially having people in my network that I was able to lean on. And, I was always very curious. I was always having, calls with people, networking, trying to get a better understanding of what their day-to-day looked like. And, I was excited for the next chapter. So when I had to make that decision, I was fortunate. I'll never change anything any parts of my career. And now I'm in a spot that, I have an attachment to what I'm doing in my day-to-day that, I might as well be, playing college or professional hockey, because the team that, JR has built and the people around me, it's no different than being in a foxhole, like in a tough game on a Friday night or a Saturday night. It's just, you're coming up against the same challenges in the day-to-day. And so I feel the same level of attachment to what I'm doing now as, I did 6-7 years ago when I was playing in a big game. It's just, and that's, not everybody has that. I'm fortunate, and I guess I'm blessed to have that.
And the reason why I kind of talk about the A- player in a way, because we often get this problem of like there can be incredibly powerful producers, but they aren't necessarily the person that you're going to want on the team, because there is a really careful dynamic to an incredible personal, delivery of results, but that will not map. So I would say I'm type A- because I'm not the leader. I'm not like, I can take a leadership role. But I'm a coach more than a top player. The first thing I do is like immediately look, how can I make the group around me better? How can I help their experience be better? And, I always say to like, the greatest thing I will ever achieve in life is helping somebody else achieve the greatest thing in their life. I am the product of my peers' success. And, you've seen that. And Anthony, again, being very recently out of that ecosystem, who, don't name names necessarily, feel free to, that's fine, it's an open podcast. Who are the people that you saw that were like, great performer, they deliver results, they deliver goals, they deliver KPIs, whether it's on the ice, off the ice, on the field, off the field, but you're like, wouldn't hire them? Or like, I wouldn't recommend them to go to a team. When they go to another team, you're like, I'm going to miss the numbers, but I ain't going to miss the guy. Like, how often do you see that?
I think there's one-off scenarios that you can always recognize. I tried to do as good of a job as I could of not, holding my thumb on that for any individual all the time. I typically try to give people the benefit of the doubt. There's some scenarios. Just very recently, there was somebody, and this is before I started at Shift, somebody very close in my network had asked me about somebody that I had played with in the past, that they were looking to hire them actually in a sales role. And I had to be honest with them. I said, I think this person is a high performer. They would probably do well. They would be consistent at their job. I don't necessarily know it's someone that I would want to jump on, a stand-up call every morning with. And he took that information, and I think that's exactly, he had a couple calls with this person already, and I think that's what he had felt in his stomach. So I just confirmed that. But you notice it. I mean, and that's part of, you end up in a leadership role and building a great team. There's no secret that, certain coaches have success, at so many levels or year over year. It's not because they have the best players. It's because they understand and they have an ability to build the best team possible. And they know how guys will play off each other and the dynamic around different personalities. And okay, we really need this guy, but if we get this guy, is he going to affect this person's personality? It's, there's so many things that go into that type of stuff in the back end. And I personally would try to, it's tough not to recognize that stuff, but I would like I said, try to give people the benefit of the doubt and just look at, when they were on my team, what they brought to the table.
Well, you're aged beyond your years, my friend, because there's an empathy in that description that's pretty powerful that a lot of people may not even recognize. Right? And I would say my description of this is like, I had a guy throw a coffee at me on a bike one day, and this is not abnormal when you're riding into downtown Toronto or downtown Vancouver on the way to work, and everybody's in rush hour and they see a bike go by, and some guy cut me off. I yelled at him. He threw a coffee at me, and every part of me says, F that guy. But immediately I had this empathy of like, he didn't throw a coffee at me. He threw a coffee at an image of a problem that he's been facing for either a day, an hour. Somebody cut him off 20 minutes ago, and he's now playing that out in this moment. Like he had the fight or flight. It took 20 minutes, and now I'm the guy getting the fight. And I try to put that moment into context, and then think, and but it's sometimes you can put that moment into context, and then after you get 4 coffees thrown at you by the same car, you're like, yeah, that dude's a problem. Like there will be consistency, but I love that you've already recognized that there's so much context to behavior, and it can come in both sides of like, hey, great performer. All right, let's put it in context. Be careful. They had a great team around them. You just may not have seen it. Or, hey, they are kind of loud on mic and they said bad stuff about their team. Like, yeah, you didn't see that they were going through a divorce at the same time.
Yeah.
Right there. If you bring all the context together, and like JR, you've done this too, right? Where we see people that perform well, especially when someone comes in from the outside, and boy, oh boy, A player, alpha, new methods. We're going to scrap what you're doing. We're going to start all over. And you're like, whoa, no, hang on. Like methods, people, habits, they will change as a company organization grows and as a sales motion grows, right? From 0 to 5 million, 5 to 15, 15 to 25, they're fundamentally different models. So when we look at those behaviors, when we look at building the players that fit, let's talk about context. How do you map the organization's goals with what they need to hire for now, but also keep an eye on what's next?
I think this. Can you ask that question again, Eric?
Yeah, like when you talk to an organization, they're saying like, I need 10 salespeople. This is where we are as a business.
Yep.
And you can't just think, okay, I got 10 people. You're like, no, like, how do you apply context and trajectory into the decision of who you bring into that team?
Yeah, that's a good question, actually. And it is a question we ask back, which is like, what's the growth path for these individuals, right? Because that's important when you think about hiring. And Eric, you'll remember this from our shared experience at a company where when you looked around the other departments in the organization, whether it was like customer success, sales engineering, marketing, right? A lot of those folks, when they entered the business, were BDRs, right? And it was a really, really good way to ingratiate people into the culture and the mission, and understand the customer, the personas, and like how we solve those problems uniquely. But then expand those opportunities for those BDRs to go into other parts of the business and have a massive impact, right? So that's an important question we ask companies, because if they're like, listen, we literally want BDRs to be our bullpen for sales executives, and that's it. Okay, that's a different kid, right? That's a different candidate than, hey, like we see an opportunity where BDR is a good foot in the door, and then we can expand. Like we have a company that we work with, Eric. They're in Boston. They were publicly traded. They're now private equity owned, but they have had 22 different career paths for BDRs. They have BDRs that have gone 22 different ways, right? The type of kid that we put in front of them is much different than another company in Boston we work with that's like, this is our bullpen. These are our account executive minor leagues. And every kid that's going to become BDR, we want to put them into the AE seat as quickly as possible. So I think like thinking about like, not just how you're going to build your sales organization, but how you're going to build your organization in general is a really important thing to think about when you're developing the profile for all your entry-level roles. That's a huge piece. And then I think the other piece is thinking about how dynamic is your actual technology, right? Because you're selling to one persona today with one message. Is that going to be the same in like 3 or 4 years? I did a call today with the guy who was a VP of sales at Rubrik for like 3 years. Eric, you'll love this. And he was like, yeah. He's like, when I started, we sold dumb storage backup. That was what we did, right? They're a security and ransomware company now.
Yeah.
Like if you don't and you know, maybe they knew that, maybe they didn't, but hopefully the way they hired was in a way where it's like, hey, we might have to pivot a little bit And our technology, like Turbo is a very good example where we touch so much of the stack, where we ended up selling so much, like, talking about ServiceNow integration, talking about, like, that was much different than it was like, hey, here's a cool dashboard that will show you where there's problems and give you answers. As we progressed as an organization, we needed really the people who succeeded in those later years with us were the reps that were super dynamic and the people that were super dynamic. So like,
Right.
I think there's a couple factors to really think about when you think about that entry level profile that you're actually looking for.
So the advantage then to me, this is why I love this idea of like choose the experts in each field to do this, right? If I'm going to grow my organization, I need to have people that run the organization, but to hire in and look for that, create that bullpen for whatever is there. This is why I would push people to, I mean, I always do push people towards you guys, because what you and the team are doing is just that, right? You're thinking about it like a system, not like a roster.
Yes.
It's so different, right? This is not bodies. They happen to be bodies that are filling functions and roles and titles, but you're a systematic approach to the problem. Exactly. And you understand the problem deeply, and you understand the future of the problem, not just the current state of the problem. And it's like, if I'm an organization, the last thing I want to do is have an HR team that I got to trust to be able to do this, because they got to hire 15 different roles. They're going to hire engineers. Like most of these tech companies, their biggest thing is hiring engineers. And so that flow and hiring engineers, it's like a 7-week, 22 interview process. Like it's a whole scene.
Yeah.
Sales, quite often, it's like, all right, what you doing for dinner? Let's go. You just put, I'll meet you on the ice, and there's a very different dynamic to the sales hiring. It's much more human experience. So HR teams really struggle, I find, with being able to really put the right people in the right opportunity. And this is why, looking at what you do, like you solve this problem with people using a systematic method, and you're creating the back end training so that the people that get there are better prepared for the future. So I don't have to worry about that. Like this is, it's a no brainer.
Yeah. Yeah. I think like, HR with HR, right? Like in engineering, it's like, listen, I can't hire this guy to do this job that doesn't know this language, this architecture, et cetera. Right. So it's a little more black and white in a lot of ways. Where in like sales, if you try to make sales black and white, right? You say, well, they need a 4-year degree. They need to have done this type of job for 2 years. They need to have, this type of, tool stack experience. You're going to miss so much of the population that actually is a better fit for you and your culture and like your sales motion, whatever that sales motion is, whether it's PLG or outbound led or whatever, because you've tried to make like a thing that is very not black and white, very black and white. And we see that sometimes, right? And we kind of, when we work with an organization, we put that down. We're like, hey, like we don't agree with these requirements you have here, and here's the reason why, and here's 10 examples of people that you would miss that we think would be a perfect fit for your organization. So the system is important, and I think getting the human side, the human element into it is critical when it comes to sales.
And this is why the Shift Connect, the platform, what often happens is even like I did this with mentoring. I basically became a platform that happened to be wrapped around people, because I had to use a platform. I had to use to like take the methods, algorithmically represent them, and like make it easy to build these processes to put people together. And it worked. It's kind of silly. Like I'd probably get away with it on a notepad and a phone call. But at the same time, if I could accelerate it and learn from it, and that's the most important thing, is what you're doing is that as you scale, you're already talking about learning, taking those new processes and applying into what's next. So now here's the hardest question. I often tell people, what's the worst thing that's happened to you that you're thankful for? We're heading into it. right? We're heading into one of the most difficult financial, markets, at least an unknown but unknowns are scary.
Yeah.
So JR, and then I'll tap you as well on this one, Anthony, because I want to hear both your perspectives. Why is now the right time to bring people on board?
Because sales execution is going to be way more important in times like this than it is. Like you said, anybody can sell when everybody, and when everything's going great, right? And companies are spending money and there's budgets are open and, all these things are going on. Like that's easy, right? I've been through those cycles too. And those are fun, right? The dinners are a little more expensive. The cigars are up a notch. But the reality is like when times get tough, the details matter and sales execution is critical. So I think right now, like, companies are going to be a lot more kind of intense about the way they bring in new people to their organization. And I think that we're going to offer those intense organizations a way to really understand who they're getting and what they're bringing to the table. And I think I'm a big believer that the best companies, they spend and they grow through downturns, right? We saw it in 08 and all the amazing companies that came out of 08, Eric. Like it's wild, right? I think you're going to see the same thing now as the companies that continue to focus on growth and execution in a couple of years when we come out of this thing, hopefully shorter, who knows? To your point, we have no idea. That those are going to be the companies that are going to be the icons of the next 10, 20 years,
There is a reason why when you're in whitewater, you paddle into the waves. You don't sit there waiting for the wave to take you, because the wave will do things to you. Like idle is bad and it's hard work and it's risky to paddle, but you have to, right? This is because if we batten down the hatches and just hope to ride out the storm, when you open the windows in 7 months, all those companies that spent into the downturn are going to be coming out the other side with pipeline.
Yep.
And now you're in pipeline build mode 7 months in, and people are just getting ready to write checks. Too late. They already wrote them to your competitors. If you don't have the right team doing it, then that's tough. So Anthony, same thing, given that you're, seeing your career turn and now looking through as you're walking into a tough economic time, but how exciting is it?
For me, as an everyday seller right now in this market, I'm extremely excited because, as JR put it, it's into your original question. I don't know if it's necessarily the amount of people that you bring on in this time. It's the amount of people that you bring on that are executing the right way, and it's the right people. And the foundation that we're putting in front of these entry level and sales folks, specifically the business development, the sales development roles, they have the ability to come in and no matter the market, of course, there's external factors that are going to be outside of their control, but we give them the tool sets, to be able to work through a lot of those challenges originally, because we know right now the magnifying glass, is a little bit, is held a little bit more on budget, especially internally at a company. And these individuals who get there, there might not be as good as of onboarding. There's not going to be as many people internally to do training. There's not going to be as many training sessions. It's probably going to be quicker time to ramp. And companies need to know that the investments that they're making are, one, they're in good candidates, but also, that candidate isn't going to get 5 months in and get cold feet because, they haven't booked a meeting in a couple of weeks, or, they haven't sold any, I shouldn't say sold anything right away, but, the numbers aren't necessarily there. That's the beauty of, and I heard this recently on a podcast, Eric, the beauty of hiring ex-athletes, although I don't necessarily think it's a must for a lot of companies. The value of hiring an ex-athlete is they have the ability to understand that something they're doing today is going to not have immediate effects, but it could be 6 to 12 months out. So you hear and you listen to elite athletes talk about their training in preparation to, potentially like the Olympics or the Tour de France or something like that. It's there. And a book that I don't know if you were referencing earlier, you talked about cycling as Atomic Habits. It's the ability to, compound a lot of this little stuff that you're doing day by day in hopes that it's eventually going to have a grand outcome for you or the team that you're playing on. And being able to rely on your habits throughout this is a lot of what our candidates that we're setting up for success are going to be able to do. And companies should be looking for that when they're hiring these people. Is do they have the foundation, to rely on in difficult times? It's easy to say that somebody's resilient, but if they're able to show that in the interview process, companies should be looking for that. And that's why I'm excited, because we have a lot of, those candidates that we can put in front of companies right now that they shouldn't be hesitant to bring somebody on in a financial downturn, because these are going to be the individuals that, get them through it.
I love it. Well, there you go. Mic drop moment. Y'all both nailed it. Thank you very much. So for folks that do want to find out, of course, we'll be in Vegas. Hopefully people will be able to meet you there. We'll make sure that we set up some chances to chat with other folks that we've got on our sort of sponsor and community support. But ultimately, if people want to get a hold of Shift Group, of course, you go to shiftgroup.io. We'll have links down below. JR, what's the best sort of inbound email method? What's your favorite way for them to get in touch with you and Anthony?
They can email us at sales@shiftgroup.io. That's perfect.
Thing of beauty. You should have for the technologists there, one says not sales. Like, no, you're not talking to a sales guy. Just you're talking to a warm, friendly face.
No, I like that.
Going back on Eric on that, some of the sales interviewing stuff that you talked about earlier, I thought you had a TSN live looking at what my interview process looked like with JR. He was like, we getting dinner tonight? And then 2 hours later, I was like, I'm a Shift Group employee. So
what happens? He Ricky Romed you right there. You started off, and the next thing you know, I'm like, I'm not going to sell you this thing, but let me just show you something. It's pretty exciting.
He's lucky that his fiance's the chicken that she made that night, the buffalo chicken wings were incredible. So that had me in a good mood. And
but it's the total package, and that is 100%. That's why I love the approach that you and the team have. So I'm long Shift Group. Trust me, if I could invest, I would. But I know you're going the route right now. You've got strong, customer and revenue driven growth, which is in itself a testament to the methods proving out. And, I'd tell you it's luck. And as the old saying from, I think it was Rounders, Matt Damon, he says, if this game is about luck, then how come it's the same 12 guys at the final table every year? There is luck, there is stuff, but preparation, repetition, ability to persist, ability to ride out difficulty and execute the plan. The score takes care of itself. And that comes down to the KPIs, the quarterly numbers, the bookings. Just do the thing, and then the numbers will come. Gentlemen, thank you very much. And of course, for folks, do check it out. Head on over to gtmdelta.com/live. You can see all the cool stuff we're doing at the event and a lot more. And go to shiftgroup.io, because these are fantastic humans and you need to hire a bunch of their people. So get on it. All right. That's it. We're out.
That was awesome, Eric. Thank you.